Right. I've got a lot to be thankful for, too. I'm thankful for Dottie. Some of y'all don't know that we met in the Container Store. I kept running into her basket trying to get her attention. That basket was pretty well beat up time I got through, but anyway, let me give you a quick report on last week. I was gone. And just to give the elevator version to some of our visitors that are here, of all these years that I've been out running all over the country doing seminars in the Old Testament Tabernacle, driving down the road, that my brain would just keep on working while I'm driving. I should have been driving, but my brain was working on this project. And I have taken the ideas to Branson, Missouri, and talked them up there. And the right people have heard them, and they've taken on a desire to see the project come to pass. But it will be a venue that will have a full-size replica of the tabernacle in it, complete with pillar of fire and smoke above your head, fire and smoke out of the altar, lightning and thunder coming off the Mount Sinai, seeing the Shekinah light and the Ark of the Covenant and the rending of the veil. And everybody that comes through there will get the pure gospel on how to be saved and why Jesus is the only way. They anticipate an annual attendance of 500,000 people. And so we've met up with Mr. Jack Hershen, who owns Hershen Family Entertainment, Silver Dollar City, Dollywood, and all a bunch of stuff. We have met up with the people who build all that kind of stuff. We've met up with the Sight and Sound CEOs and a bunch of other people that are going to partner up with us. So to make a long story short, we met with some people who are designers, and design work has begun. Okay? We can say we've started. We started something. And we went down to a trade show in Florida that's where all the people involved in this kind of thing, that's where all they meet annually at the trade show. So I met down there with them. And one of the gentlemen I met with is named David Simmons. And I'll try to pull up some of his work. He works for an independent company, a devout Christian fella. Okay, he works for an independent company that does all the artwork for Disney. And he's the number one Disney guy. I mean, this is the best of the best of the best. But he has, because of Disney's direction that they're going, he's just been bothered about working for them. And he's going to quit the company that he works for and working for Disney, and he's going independent. So our project will be the first project that he does. And he's going to start with the design of the building, and especially from the exterior, and then do a 90-second animated walkthrough. And so he's going to start that work next week. He said, wait till after Thanksgiving. He'll start next week, and is proposed to have that finished by January the 15th. And then from there, we have some appointments that we're going to be making with the big dollar people. And we all at one time had funding, but we lost it because of COVID. And so they'll contribute. But we can honestly say right now we've got $5 million donated. And then some others. So anyway, the work has progressed. And so am I moving a Branson to run that? No. Okay, that was my plan ever, to be the one who run it. I'm not going to worry about the floors being swept, the windows being washed, and stuff like that. I'm just giving them the ideas of the project, and so they're taking it, and a lot of people are interested in it. So I really feel good because I can say we started doing something. We started the design that will be used in the final deal. And I'll tell you, the building that all of this is going to be in, we come to this decision while we were there that the design of the front of the building, you come across the parking lot, you're going to go under some ruins, archway ruins of an old building, and you go under the ruins, then you go into the courtyard, and there's the building, and we're going to use the eastern gate in the wall of Jerusalem as our pattern for the entrance into it, the eastern gate. So anyway, that's where we are with it, and I'm real excited about that. I'm going to be intently busy until mid-January because it's going to be a back and forth everyday interaction between me and this David Simmons as he's doing the design. He'll do something, send it to me, we approve it, we discuss it, we send it back, and so on. So it's going to be a pretty busy couple of months this winter getting ready for that design to be completed. I'm anxious to see it because the quality of his work is the best of the best. And so it's going to be something to see, and I'll be anxious to show something to you. John chapter 6 and verse 1 is where I'm going to read today. And the title up there right now is only half of it, but I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag before I got through bringing you up to it and bringing an introduction. We got visitors here today. That just really makes my day. I'll tell you what, I'm just excited about today. I feel so good, I'm just going to offer to buy everybody's lunch. Just come on after church. I've got it fixed out there in the fellowship building. Been working hard all night with it. And so y'all are just welcome to come out and have lunch with us today. We've got, I know, two turkeys. Brother Roy, did you bring a turkey? All right, we got a turkey. We got at least 2 turkeys and no telling, and what? And a ham. And are y'all getting hungry just listening to that? You wished I'd hurry up, right? John, don't push your luck. John chapter 6, and I'm going to begin reading in verse 1. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a great multitude followed him because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. That tells us what time of the year. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he said unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, There is a lad here, which hath 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? And Jesus says, Make the men sit down. Now, there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves when he had given thanks. He distributed it to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. And when they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, said, This is of a truth that prophet that should come into the world. Now, a multitude of people were interested in hearing from Jesus because, as verse 2 says, they saw the miracles that he did on them that were diseased. Now, there were times that he was busy working miracles, but now he takes a little time that he's going to speak to the multitude and do some teaching, as it said in verse 3, sat with his disciples. It said in verse 4 that it was the time of the Passover. Passover is in late March, early April. In Israel, the countryside, the hills of Galilee, are covered with wildflowers, beautiful wildflowers. The only place I've ever seen with so many wildflowers is Texas in the springtime with our blue bonnets and paintbrushes. But in Israel, they have more variety of colors. And a beautiful country over there in the springtime. So in late March or early April, the weather was perfect. And a beautiful day out, probably the low 70s, a beautiful day. And it said in verse 10 that there was about 5,000 men. Matthew chapter 14 gives the same account in it, and it said that there were 5,000 men plus women and children. Well, we're probably looking at a congregation of close to 10,000 people that were gathered together listening to Jesus. Now, it's interesting to put Matthew's record of this event together with John's record. They tell the same story, but they don't all give exactly the same details. Matthew 14, verse 14 says that he worked miracles and that he taught them. And it said, and when it was evening, and evening began in Israel, was considered evening at about 3 p.m. When the sun got about 45 degrees in the sky, that's when they considered from that point it's going down, and from 3 p.m. on is considered evening. And Jesus died on the cross, it said, in the evening at 3 p.m. That's the beginning of eventime. And so the disciples in Matthew's record says that they came to Jesus and suggested that he send them away into nearby villages to find something to eat. Now, they've been going all day without anything to eat. It's about 3 p.m. and the people are beginning to get hungry. If I don't eat anything at 3 p.m., I'm hungry too, aren't y'all? And I'm just hungry thinking about all that food out there. Jesus asked Philip about buying food to feed the people. And Philip's response was, well, we got some money, but we don't have enough money to buy enough for everybody to have enough. And so Philip responded that they didn't have the money. Peter mentioned in verse 9, he said, there's a lad here which had 5 barley loaves, 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? Well, Andrew, Peter's brother, said that. And so he had noticed that in the crowd there was a lad that had the 5 loaves, 5 biscuits, and 2 small fish. And, of all the people that day that came out to prepare Jesus, this boy was prepared to stay, wasn't he? He brought his lunch with him. And he thought they might, and he brought his lunch. He's prepared. Whatever happened, he's prepared all that. You reckon Andrew, that preacher's kind of been eyeing his biscuits and fish? Because he's getting hungry. And so he saw that boy, and he had noticed that boy. And Matthew's record says that Jesus responded, bring him hither to me. And so in verse 11, it says, and Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. So first of all, he gave thanks. So it was a time of thanksgiving. Jesus handled the bread and the fish and gave to the disciples. The disciples delivered to the people. They would deliver a basket full, come back and get another basket full, and Jesus just kept breaking the bread, and it just kept coming. Working a miracle right there in the presence of all those people. When everyone was filled, and everybody had everything they wanted, they took up the pieces that were left, and they had 12 baskets left. All right. So we have, with the giving of thanks, we have Thanksgiving dinner. But with the fragments that were left over, the 12 baskets of fragments, they had leftovers. I've been here 35 years. I'm telling you, on these holidays, coming up with something new and fresh every year is getting difficult. I'm going to talk about leftovers today. Thanksgiving leftovers. I think that's a most appropriate subject to talk about. So we're going to talk about having Thanksgiving leftovers. First of all, the lesson that we learned from eating leftovers, that it teaches us to be thankful for all that we have. I'm thankful for leftovers, aren't y'all? Yeah. Sometimes all we have is leftovers. It's leftovers or nothing. Leftovers is not too bad when you're hungry and you have nothing else to eat. In the sacrificial offerings, the people were to bring certain sacrifices as thanksgiving offerings unto God. And so God had required that periodically they bring these special Thanksgiving offerings. You see, God expects us to be thankful for whatever we have. Whatever it is, He expects us to be thankful for whatever we have. The Psalms are full of admonition to show our thanksgiving to the Lord. Just a couple of them. Psalm 69:30, I will praise the name of God with a song and will magnify Him with thanksgiving. Psalm 95 and verse 2 says, let us come before His presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto Him with psalms. And Psalm 100, which is known as the Thanksgiving Psalm, in verse 4 says, enter into His gates with thanksgiving and into His courts with praise. Be thankful unto Him and bless His name. I liked our time we took this morning of people giving expression of thanksgiving. It was good for us to hear those things. Philippians 4 and verse 6, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known to God. Even when you're eating the leftovers, in everything give thanks unto God. Now, you know, sitting at the dining table and offering thanks for leftovers teaches us to be grateful for everything that God has given us. No matter what. We've had it before, and, you know, sometimes, we've had it before. Maybe you have leftovers more than once, right? Typically, after a day like today, or Thanksgiving and the special holidays and Christmas, you have so much around, you got to eat it up, don't you? And so you have leftovers. And so when you sit down and you eat the leftovers, that means you really have to be grateful to God for everything that He gives you. You know, I look back on my life and reflect in so many times of difficulty. Okay? I often fail to understand that I have more from God than I deserve, even with the leftovers. Okay? That we don't, you know, when we get this arrogance about us and to think, Lord, I don't know what I've done to deserve this. That is a highly arrogant statement. Think about it. I don't know what I've done to deserve this. It's arrogance on our part because we deserve a lot worse. We deserve to spend an eternity in hell in the lake of fire and brimstone forever and forever. And anything here better than that is a reason to give thanks unto God. We got it a lot better than that, and I've never had anything that bad. We really don't have the right to complain about anything. Because what I have. And in everything give thanks. In 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 18, in everything. What did he mean, all the trouble? Yeah. All the problems and the heartaches and the injuries and everything to give thanks. You know, I can look back on my life, and there were times when life was difficult. I remember times we didn't have Thanksgiving dinner. We had the Thanksgiving holiday come and gone, but we didn't exactly have the fine dining that I enjoy in my adult life. You know, all the turkey and the dressing and all that stuff. I remember, I know what it's like to go hungry. I know what it's like to just have the absolute bare necessities. I have to be thankful for it because it's better than what I deserve. How could I complain? Matter of fact, when I look at what Jesus endured on the cross to save me from my sins, how in the world can I complain about anything? And then I don't get what I deserve. Well, that's a double whammy, isn't it? Y'all know what I mean by that. All right. Second thing about leftovers. Eating leftovers teaches us not to put so much emphasis on things of the flesh. You know, some people are real picky. They don't like leftovers. They won't eat leftovers. Well, it's really good that we live in a society that's so affluent and abundant that we don't always have to. But don't be ever so good that if you ever come around and you have to, that you still won't be thankful for it. The reason we don't really like leftovers is because we like our food fresh and good. And sometimes leftovers are not as good as they were when we first prepared it. But we can get spoiled to think that we deserve only the best, when in fact we don't deserve only the best. One of the temptations man experiences is in eating. That's right. That's an issue we got to deal with. Eve saw the forbidden fruit and she said it was good for food. Was tempted by it. We're tempted by food. We like our food. We don't eat because we're hungry. We just eat because it's good. I said we. Okay. I'm guilty. You know, I started to find the manager at Brookshire's, and I wanted to tell him, you can double the price of eggs. You can go up on milk. You can up the price on lettuce. But Bluebell ice cream is another matter. Well, we like our eating, don't we? I was off down in the trade show last week, and out there on the floor of the trade show, these vendors have all their samples of food out there, and they're wanting the parks of the different entities to buy to use them as the supplier for their food. And there's hamburgers, hot dogs, ice cream, lots of ice cream, fudge, all kinds of candy, free. Just go help yourself. And there was a food court that I spent a lot of time just going in circles. They didn't give you a whole lot. Get a little cup of ice cream. And I enjoyed it. Well, I was down there with the brethren, and so somebody would come along and say, oh, well, let's go have breakfast early. We'd have to get up early before the show started. And show opened the doors at 10 o'clock, so we had time, and it was about an hour drive up there in traffic to get to the place. So we went out to this Big Tom's restaurant. Now, that name right there just already sounds good, doesn't it? Big Tom's restaurant in Winter Haven, Florida. And so the price of their Big Tom breakfast is about the price out here at Cracker Barrel for breakfast. 2 people would have had way too much in that breakfast. 3 eggs, 3 bacon, 3 sausage, a big old ham, and a plate of biscuits and gravy that big around. Now, I couldn't eat. Now, we like that, don't we? We like our eating. We're tempted by it. We struggle. We struggle with our eating. And sometimes with with eating a little too much, then we have to get rid of it, and oh, is that so hard? We can become addicted to food such as sugar. I know we can. Okay? So our lives are sometimes focused on the wrong things. Look at these expensive restaurants out there that people go to just to eat. Just to eat. So we don't like leftovers. Because there's so much good stuff out there that's prepared, we like it. Growing up where food is scarce is better for us than living in luxury, because we appreciate more what we have than what we typically do here, because we can get so much so easy. Number 3, eating leftovers teaches us to be good stewards of what we have, not to be wasteful. Are we not complaining about the high price of food? We do, don't we? And so we're appalled at the high prices. But having to eat leftovers will teach us to be good stewards of our investment when we go to the supermarket. First of all, we buy a lot of stuff we don't need, don't we? And sometimes we spend a lot of money on some things that we'll never use again, and it's going to spoil, we throw it away. A lot of the stuff we put in the grocery cart we don't even need. And when we learn to be good stewards in one area, we'll practice it in all areas. We show our thanksgiving to God by budgeting our resources so as to remember God. Now here's where we're talking about having to eat leftovers. To show our thanksgiving to God, we budget. So would God expect us to put those Cokes back, or the high dollar steak, and even the Bluebell ice cream, and eat something less expensive in order to have offerings to give Him? I'm telling you, He would. He would. People spend their money on so many unnecessary things and then tell God they're broke and they don't have anything to give. We have the finest televisions and computers and automobiles and jewelry and everything else. We spend our money on those things. We gladly do it. We want them. And then we come and have to explain to God, well, Lord, I just don't have enough. And eating leftovers is an indication of one's good management of their resources, not to be wasteful. Well, the last one is this. Leftovers are soon to be forgotten. Oftentimes we put leftovers in the fridge and then we forget about them. There's nothing worse in the world to dig through the refrigerator and to be a container in the back and pull that thing out, and that was some good banana pudding that's sitting back there till it's spoiled. And I asked myself, how in the world could you let that happen? That good banana pudding got spoiled in the refrigerator. The same thing is true of our Thanksgiving thoughts. We'll have Thanksgiving thoughts for one moment and then we begin to forget to be thankful with God. We put our leftovers aside and then we forget about them. We come to a Thanksgiving service and offer up our thanks, but in a few days we forget what God's done for us. Isaiah pronounced judgment on Israel. He said in Isaiah 17:10, because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation. Jeremiah said to the people of Israel that they have forgotten the Lord their God. And Peter wrote that a man in 2 Peter 1:9 hath forgotten that he was purged from his old sins. That's pretty bad when you forgot your experience of salvation. One has to be very selfish in his living to have forgotten that he's saved by the grace of God. He left out thanksgiving in his life. You know, seldom do we realize that we ought to ask God to forgive us for not being thankful. You know, sometimes we come here and we realize that, you know, I'm thankful for this and I'm thankful for that. We're reminded of it and we think about it a little while. And we do have a lot to be thankful for. And then we go out and then we forget how thankful we ought to be, because when we start being critical and grumbly, that's because we forgot to be thankful. Now, we either have the choice to show our thanksgiving to God or ask God to give us what we deserve. Who would have the not audacity, who would dare to do that? I'm not. So I'm going to be thankful for His blessings. Let's stand and sing and have an invitation. If you're saved, today's the day to be.